This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, we now bring you a discussion on environmental challenges and Earth Hour movement. The participants are Vidya Soundarajan, Director, Ecological Footprints, Worldwide Fund for Nature India, and Sonu Sood, AIR Correspondent.
15 years ago, when Earth Hour movement started, the focus was only on 1 hour, 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. on one day in a year, last Saturday of March, when all lights and unnecessary electrical gadgets were switched off to signify the importance of saving energy. But today, every hour counts. Climate change and conserving our planet has become a major challenge which needs to be tackled collectively on a war footing. Can you, to begin with, shed some light on the major environmental challenges our planet is facing currently?
As everybody knows, and we feel it every day, and we have been seeing it for the last couple of years, immense scarcity of water, sudden deluges, floods, cyclones, disasters, as well as landslides, droughts, following floods, repeatedly affecting agriculture production, pandemic-like situation, new vector-borne diseases emerging every year. So there are a lot of all of these environmental issues that are affecting us and the earth in a big way. Most important of that, which I would really like to highlight, is the consumption, the human use of resources and human waste coming from the discard is really impacting the earth in the most negative manner. And we, being one of the living species, are also affected equally by it.
So, ma'am, what are the salient aspects of climate change and what challenges are created by it for all of us?
Climate change, as the name denotes, is basically dramatic changes. And it is caused because of global warming. So Earth has an envelope of air around it, which maintains the temperature. And that's how when Earth has water and has life in it. So that entire atmosphere is the life-supporting system. And when we increase the amount of carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, sulfuric oxide, all of those gases, it starts trapping hot air into the Earth's atmosphere, which then makes the land temperature, the air temperature, the sea surface temperature to go up. Now, basic geography, what we have studied in school several years ago, we know that the water evaporates from the sea and forms clouds, and that's how winds form by the air density and the rainfall happens. Because we have very high surface sea temperatures, there is greater evaporation, and the cloud formation is very early on in the sea. If you were to close your eyes and imagine the Arabian Sea, the southwest monsoon cloud typically becomes heavy enough where it comes closer to the Indian subcontinent in the normal times. But because the rate of evaporation is higher with greater temperatures, the heavy clouds form much before between the African continent and the Indian subcontinent and starts moving towards the land. So now we see the diagonal direction in which southwest monsoon used to travel from Kerala across Andhra Pradesh to Cherrapunji has moved, and it starts from northern Maharashtra, and now Gujarat and western Rajasthan are receiving massive rains, western Himalayas is receiving massive rains, Cherrapunji is not receiving rains, eastern Godavari district is not receiving rains. So these changes are happening, and it's like a dominoes effect. One temperature increase will cause all of these changes to happen. Then it's a vicious cycle. The greater temperature, the ice melts. If the ice on water melts, it's fine. So Antarctic melting is not a huge problem. But Greenland ice sheet melting, Himalayas melting means the sea level will rise hugely. If the sea level rises vertically by 1 meter, it's not massive. But if you imagine, it's like a triangle. The sea level vertical 1 meter rise means at least 1 kilometer of seawater coming inside into the land. That means so much of coastal land across the world we are going to lose. So sea level rise is a very big issue. And of course, sudden dry periods, these temperatures, when the vacuum is created, cyclones form. So several cyclones happen. When random clouds come in, cloudbursts happen and devastating floods happen. So there's a lot more damage. So it completely destroys the rhythm and the cycle in which the earth was functioning earlier.
So how far do you feel we are responsible for this? What are the major problem areas which we can fix? What are the solutions?
Human beings are entirely and solely responsible for this. A very small fraction of the change in temperature is because of the fact that the Earth's trajectory changes a little bit, but that's very small fraction. And if we had only allowed that, it will take a couple of more million years before this happens. This is like, if I were to use a metaphor, if you kept, I'm going to use a very cooking example for this. You have a brinjal, and if you just keep it out there on the dining table, it'll probably take like a week to shrink and shrivel and dry or decay. But if you were to keep it on a furnace, in less than 5 minutes, we have burnt it. Of course, we make a dish out of it, but we have burnt it. So by creating this extreme concentration of the greenhouse gases, by all the activities that we do, industrialization, transportation, cement, electricity, the way we produce so many clothes and factories and consume water, we are extracting all of that out and destroying the environment by concentrating it. So we are really, really speeding up the process of destruction. And that is what climate change necessarily does. And so human beings overall are responsible. Of course, when it comes to this, the share of responsibility of some people is certainly different. Like my own contribution to climate change by living in Delhi, traveling in cars, how much ever I avoid, still need to do that, flying to some places. Obviously, my contribution is going to be much higher than, let's say, a farmer in Maharashtra or a person who is a fisherman who is actually taking care of the environment in the coast of Tamil Nadu. It's going to be very different. But collectively, we are all responsible for it.
So how do you see the role of Earth Hour as a symbolic movement to create awareness about perils of overuse of precious natural resources and about our responsibility towards our future? Do you see this translating into a growing thrust towards recycling, reuse of waste, besides avoiding wastage of energy?
In 2007-06, when the Earth Hour started, at that point in time, it helped bringing focus. It was visible. It was like a brand ambassador. We do bring in Amitabh Bachchan to promote a cause, Pulse Polio, so that people will understand and listen. So it is like that. By switching off, by creating a visible impact, you're making people question and raise the concern in people's mind to ask those questions. But increasingly now, I think Earth Hour, in my mind, translates as this is the final hour we have left in our hands before the ensuing destruction that is going to happen, before the floods become frequent, the droughts become frequent, the sea comes in, we have new diseases coming in. This is the last hour we have left. This is like the 1 hour before the board examination that you have to prepare an answer. So I think the most important message for Earth Hour this year is the urgency that it should make all of us feel in terms of saying each one of us need to do our most. Each one of us need to do our best. Every time we buy something, every time we eat something, every time we sell something, we should be thinking, what are the wider impacts of this? Is this going to harm Earth? How can I make it better? So that is the message I want everybody to take from this Earth Hour, to say that this is the last hour left with us to save the Earth and save ourselves.
Ma'am, at the COP26, India has made firm commitments towards reducing our carbon emissions. What do you feel about the issue of developed countries financing developing countries' efforts of reducing their carbon footprint? Faster cooperation is need of the hour?
Absolutely. Faster cooperation has been need of the hour for the last decade, I should say, but certainly now. And the other factor is that India is a different standalone example, because we are committing to reducing our emissions while we are still a developing economy, and that is a first ever historic case in point. It has never happened before. So if we achieve this, it's going to be a huge win, and very soon, even if we started out on the process and the way we have started out by shifting to renewable energy, by shifting to electric vehicles, by making all those massive changes, we've actually started that movement on a high, and I'm sure we will achieve. But the point still remains that the question of who will fund this, us or them, should fast dissolve, and all the investment anywhere in the world towards low carbon development should be looked at from a one earth point of view. And then individual accountability point of view to say that, as I said in the previous question, that my contribution is higher. So the amount I compensate needs to be higher than somebody, whose emissions are lesser. So if that is the conversation that's happening, it will certainly happen. Increasingly now, as let's say 10, 15 years ago, climate change was not a point of concern in the WTO. Now in World Trade Organization, climate change is a key issue that's spoken about. So it is taking center stage. It's becoming the core policy. It's actually an existential issue. So very soon these silos will start erasing out on their own, and we will see a lot of influx of funds for specific technology that will be globally applicable.
Now, the concept that is often referred to by Prime Minister Narendra Modi as being crucial for our future is mindful use of resources as opposed to mindless wastage. Do you think bringing about this change in basic mindset of individuals is one of the major objectives of the Earth Hour movement?
Absolutely. And Earth Hour is an international movement. And we as Indians have always had a slight advantage in that process because several of these mindfulness activities that are being advocated across the world, we were doing very well. And I would say that over the last 2 decades, it has started erasing out. I remember as a child, the amount of waste generated in my house will not even be one small dustbin. Whereas now in my household currently I have 3 to 4, we segregate, but we have 3 to 4 full dustbins, and that's not a good thing. The amount of food we waste, that's it. The amount of food we order about and eat. I mean, I like kiwi from New Zealand. I want to eat Washington apple. The apple travels in a plane and so much carbon emissions. We don't walk anymore if it is about 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer distance. We either have a scooter, a moped or something on fuel. I remember as children we will have new clothes for birthdays, Diwali, and I'm a Tamilian, so for Pongal, and likewise in different parts of India for specific festivities alone. But now mindlessly we buy. There is just so much of online shopping happening. So every time we buy or we throw away things, we should just pause for a moment and think that, can I repair it and use it? And if I do that, I will proudly go around and say, well, you have a new telephone. I'm using an older phone because I care for the earth. And if that becomes a fashion statement, if that becomes the motto eventually, we will all surely achieve considerable transformation. And I think the Prime Minister saying mindful use is a message that's very powerful coming from the top. So the point is that we should be, from whether it is our own time or it is, we should just pause, think, value the resource in its totality and then use it.
Another concept which the Prime Minister has often talked about is the importance of sustainable living and sustainable development. What is at the core of this concept and why is it important for our future generations also?
Sustainable development essentially means that we continue to develop and we can sustain. It's very similar to our financial management. We have proverbs to that effect to say, I'm just going to shift to Hindi to say, कि पाँव उतना ही पसारे जितनी चादर बढ़ी हो. Things like that. So you remain within your resources. All of us know that. But suddenly when it comes to a flowing river or when it comes to the soil or when it comes to your air quality, it's not our resource anymore. We think that is endless and some kalpavriksha is there which is going to give us an endless amount of resource. And the WWF Living Planet report every year comes out with this. And a couple of years ago, the study clearly said that we need 3 Earth's worth resources to support our current style of living. That is how much resources that we are using. We have to leave a darohar for our children and not a completely stripped down version of planet in which they won't even be able to live a natural life.
Thank you so much for this insightful discussion, Vidyaji.
Thank you very much. And please do remember tomorrow between 8:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. switch off as many electrical appliances as you can. Sit, meditate, focus and spread the message to say that this is the last hour where we have to really, really start saving our Mother Earth.
Thank you so much for these inspiring words.
You were listening to a discussion on environmental challenges and Earth Hour movement. The participants were Vidya Soundarajan, Director, Ecological Footprints, Worldwide Fund for Nature India, and Sonu Sood, AIR correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official.